What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we've got a bunch of interesting stuff to look at regarding Destiny 2. I wanted to discuss a hidden vendor inside the game and how they might relate to an upcoming event, also an issue with an exotic quest, SRL, and even more. So lots of things to get through in this one. So of course yesterday we got a massive amount of info on seasons, the new content coming with them, and generally what to expect. I put all that info into one simple video for you guys to watch if you missed it. We learned about the Dawning event, which of course is returning in the beginning of Season 2. Now, while the info is cool, lots of you guys were asking me about Festival of the Lost and SRL. There was no mention of either, so I wanted to highlight some pretty interesting info you might not know about that may shed some light on these events. So beginning with Festival of the Lost, if you don't know as a quick background, this is a Halloween themed event, which if it does happen would be about 1 or 2 weeks away from now, but of course there's been no mention that it will return, just assumptions, because it did happen the last 2 years since the live team was created, and it was even a small way in the vanilla launch of Destiny a month after it came out. They had the Flight of Shadows consumables and the jack-o'-lanterns. So having a Halloween themed event and Halloween loot inside the game has been a tradition since the very beginning of Destiny, which is why a lot of people assume it would return in Destiny 2. Now, where this gets interesting is that Eva Levante is actually inside the Destiny 2 database as a vendor, believe it or not. I covered in a recent video how a Reddit user called Spiffomatic found the details of Clarion Call added into the game, and then of course Bungie just revealed Clarion Call is a real thing, so that prediction was spot on based on the game files, while Spiffomatic only a few days ago also pointed out that Eva Levante is also inside the game as a vendor, which is super interesting. Now obviously this could just be old leftover code, it could mean absolutely nothing, that is definitely a possibility, or she might actually be coming with Festival of the Lost inside Destiny 2, they're both definitely possible options. So in the code, you can see the name is Eva Levante. The icon is this one, which of course was the same icon for her as a vendor back in Destiny 1. And her description is pretty interesting. It says, full functional description of this character is coming soon. So that description definitely kind of hints that she might be coming soon to the game, not just like a temporary vendor or something kind of cut. If you go off that, then maybe she will be arriving. But again, take this with a grain of salt. We did see the Clarion Call stuff being 100% correct, but there was also stuff about Prison of Elders inside Destiny 2, which was found by a different Reddit user, but that was of course proven to be false and not happening. So it is 50-50 whether she'll actually make a return or not. Now, if you're wondering what this vendor has to do with Festival of the Lost and why this is even relevant, Eva was essentially the Guardian outfitter in Destiny 1 who offered shaders and emblems, and she was the main vendor for Festival of the Lost. It was basically her event, her celebration ran by Eva, so her returning would be of course linked to the event Festival of the Lost. Now, it could also tie into many of the complaints of shaders being too difficult to get. You know, many people were complaining that they're very difficult, they're too grindy, and of course they're temporary as well. So she could be a solution, a kind of answer to many people having issues with shaders, and of course she would be a guaranteed source that you can simply buy them from. So if she stayed after the event, you'd have a rotating inventory of shaders just like Destiny 1, and of course emblems and maybe some other cosmetics as well. Now, it was of course pretty strange how Eva was of course left out of the new tower. She's obviously not here, but she is actually alive. If you didn't know, there is a scannable right around where she should be inside the new tower, a little kind of alleyway where the ghost kind of marks out this is where Eva would be, and she is confirmed to still be alive. Eva is not dead, the Cabal didn't kill her, and she is still alive, but she's not in the tower for some reason. And of course there's plenty of alleyways and spots where she could be located. Now, in terms of the event itself, I think most of the community would love to see it return. There are obviously some concerns about how significant the Eververse involvement would be, but in year 2, just after the Taken King, when the live team was made, this was their first event, and it was very well received. You had the masks and things to earn and quests as well. The tower was all decorated, and of course there were microtransactions with the treasures that you could buy, but they weren't the core of the event. Now, the Year 3 festival, however, was definitely not well received, and this was because virtually everything was only obtainable in loot boxes, which you had to buy. So you got like 1 or 2 per character from the quest, and then after that, that was it. And the only other way to get those packages with the new stuff in it was by buying the packages. So everything was essentially locked behind a paywall and definitely was not very well received, which was unlike the first festival in Year 2, which you could simply grind the game for candy and get an infinite amount of the loot depending on how much you wanted to play. So you had the option of literally grinding as much as you wanted and getting as much loot as you wanted, instead of getting given one for free and having to buy the rest with real money. So I'm sure if the event was to return for Destiny 2, they would probably hear the feedback and make it a bit less of a paywall situation, or maybe they scrapped the event as a whole because they wanted to focus on the Dawning, because that of course is going to be a pretty significant event. It's going to have weapons and armor sets, so quite a bit of work is going into the Dawning, and I wouldn't be surprised if this means there's no festival this year. But of course, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you think this code indicates that Eva will return with Festival because it has been a tradition every single year of Destiny? Or do you think they've scrapped it so they can make the Dawning even bigger and better? Let me know what you guys think. So in terms of SRL, I think this one's a lot more likely than Festival. This was also brought into Destiny Year 2 by the live team, and then again in Year 3 as a part of the Dawning, which we know is coming in Destiny 2 as well. So honestly, I would be surprised if we don't get it with the Dawning event coming up. There's also a ton of references all over Destiny 2. So many characters in the tower have voice lines when you walk up to them or past them, just joking and talking about SRL. I'm sure you guys have heard. There's plenty of in-game items that reference it, like these 3 ships you can see, and they also detail some SRL legends. Marcus Wren is a pretty big one that's very popular, and there's also these 2 on the other 2 ships, and also this exotic sparrow as well that references it. So at this point, it's an actual part of the lore, it's a real tradition, even more so than Festival. So this one I think is pretty simple. I think it's definitely going to return. I would be very surprised if it didn't, and based on how many references and hints there are inside the game, I think it's a very big possibility. But again, let me know what you guys think. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was to do with the exotic quest for the Legend of Enquiries, and now it seems to be causing some people a little bit of troubles I think Bungie should definitely address. So this of course is for a lot of people who aren't going to be doing the prestige version of the raid. This quest is always going to be given to them. There's no way to delete it, especially even more so in Destiny 2, how the exotic quests take up a physical inventory slot. So in your heavy, you're always going to have this thing there, and the worst thing is that it always comes back to you no matter how many times you dismantle it. So some somewhat good news for those of you that can do this is that there is a way to permanently get rid of it and give it into the Sweeperbot's inventory. But to do this, of course, you need to unfortunately do the raid in the first place on normal mode. So if you have the early version of the quest, of course, if you dismantle it, the main issue everyone is complaining about is that once you do so, every time you kill Cabal or Nessus, it's going to keep on giving that quest back to you, which of course is the main problem. I'm not sure if Bungie have acknowledged the issue, but hopefully soon they'll acknowledge it and maybe come up with a way to not keep giving it to you every time. Because again, the main problem is some people, quite a lot of people actually, don't have any intentional way to even do the raid if they wanted to, and this is just a wasted power slot that is definitely quite annoying to see constantly. But like I said, if you can actually do the normal version of the raid, you can then delete it, and it's going to go into Benedict's inventory, and it's going to save that step of the exotic quest that you're on, so you can grab it anytime you want, which is really good. But I can definitely agree, it's a bit of an oversight to give people this quest, which results in one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult activity in the game, being the prestige version of the raid, which tons of people aren't going to do. I mean, I don't think I'm going to do it again, to be honest. So hopefully a bit of useful advice for those of you that have done the normal raid. If you have done it, you can safely dismantle it, and it's going to go to Benedict, where you can pick it up at any time. Otherwise, you have to unfortunately wait until Bungie can come up with some solution or fix to stop giving it to you if you don't want the quest. So the next topic I wanted to quickly talk about was the Flashpoint Emblems. Now, as I've said many times in videos, these are exclusive to the enemies that only show up in Flashpoint public events, and they have a very small chance at dropping one of these 2 exclusive emblems. Some people often ask how rare they actually are and what the drop rates are like. But as an example, I only just now got the 2nd emblem, and as you can see from the emblem that tracks how many public events you've done, I've completed 232 heroic events, and I only just got this one. So that goes to show these ones can be super rare at times, and obviously it does depend purely on your RNG. I got the first one around 180 events, and the second one around 230. So I see some people tweet me that they have them in the first like 10 or 20 events, and again, it is a case of RNG. Some people may get super lucky and may get them first try. Others like me may take hundreds. So not only do they look cool, but it's also worth knowing these are some of the rarest emblems in the game, if not the rarest. I can't think of many others that are pure RNG like this, so I thought I'd share that random story of me taking a couple hundred events to finally get these rewards. So next up, I wanted to give my quick thoughts on Xur, and also a PSA that some of you may not know about these particular exotics. I would have done this yesterday, but we had so much stuff to talk about with the seasons, but he does have a very solid inventory, definitely worth paying attention to. So firstly, the Sweet Business is actually the most interesting one, and this one has a lot of purposes. It's also quite rare because Xur has never sold it yet and is never offered directly. So this is one of the rarest exotics in the game because it just requires pure RNG from exotic engrams. But this thing is actually very good because this perk right here, high caliber rounds, believe it or not, this is actually one of the best weapons for the bath section of the new prestige version of the Leviathan raid. It's very good for melting those bathers because they come out, they've got a ton of health, and they're obviously the biggest problem in the entire bath section. So melting them and essentially staggering them is the most important thing, and obviously firing a billion bullets a second and all of them being high cal is also really important. So if you don't have Merciless or another good weapon for those bath sections, this thing can be your best choice, but I would honestly mostly recommend this for Titans only if you have the Active War Rig chest piece and also the Rallying Barricade, which can basically reload your weapon instantly. So don't underestimate this weapon, it is actually pretty good, and also of course it is very fun and just unique as a weapon in general. There's also the Raiden Flux, which is hands down one of the best Arc Strider, if not the best Arc Strider exotic in the game. This thing is just so good for PvE. The amount of damage you can do when you get multiple hits is pretty incredible. So this thing for PvE, nothing better in my opinion. The Doomfang Pauldron is also very highly regarded. I don't main a Sentinel Titan, but I do know this thing is pretty strong and definitely one of the best choices for that super, just throwing a ton of shields. And finally, Winter's Guile is probably the weakest in the inventory. I mean, it's okay, nothing fantastic, but it is quite fun to use. I mean, most of the time you can normally just one-hit red bar enemies, and you shouldn't really be using this against bosses because you get stomped. So it doesn't really have that much to use, but it is definitely very fun. I've tried it out for a good couple of hours on my Warlock myself, and it is fun to have bonus damage for the slapping staff, but it isn't that practical. So it's fun, but not the best in the world. The others, however, are definitely worth picking up. So there you go, a lot to cover in this one video. As always, if you enjoyed it and want to help support the channel, then like rating down below would be much appreciated. You can click the image on screen right now to watch a video I made detailing everything you need to know in one video about the seasons and events and new loot rewards. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next one.